Tonight, we will explore the Great Fire of London, how it began, how it spread, and how the city rose again from the ashes. London in the year 1666 was a city full of energy, trade, and life. More than 500,000 people lived within its crowded streets. The lanes were narrow, winding like a maze, and the houses leaned toward each other as if ready to touch across the road. Almost every building was made of timber, coated with pitch and roofed with thatch, which made them not only charming but dangerously easy to burn. For weeks there had been no rain, and the air itself felt dry. The wooden houses had turned brittle, waiting silently for a spark. On the night of September 2nd, in a small bakery on Pudding Lane, that spark appeared. Perhaps it was from the oven, perhaps from a careless worker, but the flame rose quickly. At first it was nothing unusual. Fires were common in London, and people were used to hearing about small blazes that were soon put out. But this night was different. The fire clung to the dry wood, spread across the beams, and then jumped to the house next door. Within minutes, the flames were too strong to stop. The wind carried burning embers down the lane. Roofs caught fire as if soaked in oil. People woke to the sound of crackling wood and the sudden glow of orange light through their windows. Families rushed out into the night, holding children in their arms, dragging what belongings they could carry. The narrow streets became filled with panic and confusion. Some shouted for water, others cried out for their loved ones. Horses, terrified by the smoke and heat, broke free of their stables and galloped through the chaos. By midnight, entire rows of houses were burning. The fire moved like a living creature, leaping from street to street, faster than anyone could control. The Lord Mayor of London was called from his rest. At first, he dismissed the fire as unimportant, saying it would burn itself out. But by the time he reached Pudding Lane, he realized it was already too late. The fire was no longer small. It was a monster consuming the city. Smoke darkened the sky, and the flames roared louder than church bells. People tried to form chains, passing buckets of water from hand to hand. But the effort was useless. The water evaporated before it even touched the fire. Families abandoned their homes, running toward the River Thames. Some tried to load their furniture onto boats. Others stood on the riverbank in silence, staring at the walls of flame behind them as dawn broke. The true scale of the disaster became clear. The heart of London was burning. Churches, markets, warehouses filled with grain, and hundreds of homes were gone. The heat was so fierce that stones cracked and metal melted. The smell of smoke and burning timber filled the air for miles. London, once proud and bustling, was now a city of terror and despair. And this was only the beginning of the Great Fire. In the aftermath of the raging fire that consumed so much of London, the people faced an enormous challenge. Entire neighborhoods had been reduced to ash. Thousands of families had lost their homes, and the city itself was almost unrecognizable. Yet, despite the destruction, a remarkable story of resilience began to unfold. Londoners refused to let their city die. They gathered in makeshift shelters along the riverbanks and in open fields, determined to find hope in the ruins. Families who had once lived in bustling streets now cooked their meals over open fires, sharing what little they had with neighbors and strangers alike. Slowly, plans for rebuilding began to take shape. The king and his advisors walked through the charred remains, promising that London would rise again stronger than before. This was not only a time of loss, but also a time of unity. The fire had shown that wealth and status could be stripped away in an instant, and that all citizens, rich and poor, were vulnerable together. Out of this shared hardship came a sense of community that inspired people to rebuild side by side. Skilled carpenters, masons, and laborers offered their hands to begin constructing new homes. Merchants set up temporary stalls to keep trade alive. Children, who had been frightened during the fire, now played among the half-built houses, their laughter bringing new life to the city. Step by step, London started to transform. Wooden structures gave way to more durable designs. Streets were widened to prevent future disasters, and new laws were introduced to ensure that houses would be built with brick and stone instead of flammable timber. The lessons of the Great Fire shaped not only the architecture, but also the spirit of London. People had endured unimaginable devastation, but their determination to rebuild made them stronger. This resilience is what defined the city, turning tragedy into the foundation for a greater future. As London slowly emerged from the ashes, its people carried with them memories of loss but also a vision for a brighter future. The fire had destroyed 4/5 of the city. Architects such as Sir Christopher Wren proposed bold new designs, envisioning wide streets, open squares, and grand buildings that would make London one of the most modern cities of Europe. Though not all of his ambitious plans were realized, his vision inspired the reconstruction. St. Paul's Cathedral, which had been badly damaged, became the centerpiece of this transformation. Rising from the ruins, it would stand as a symbol of resilience and faith for generations. For the ordinary people, life remained hard. Many families lived in temporary huts for years, struggling to find stability. But the spirit of cooperation never faded. Markets reopened. Schools resumed slowly. London's heartbeat returned. The fire had been a disaster, but it also gave the city an opportunity to fix the flaws of the past. Streets were widened to stop the spread of future fires. Building materials were regulated to reduce the risk of such destruction happening again. The lessons of 1666 shaped the safety and structure of cities far beyond London, influencing urban planning across Europe. The story of the Great Fire is not only about flames and destruction, but about courage, renewal, and human strength. It reminds us that even in the darkest of times, communities can rise together, rebuild, and create something stronger than before. The fire tested London, but it did not defeat it. Instead, it gave birth to a city that was tougher, more united, and ready to face the centuries to come. And so, as the final embers cooled and the smoke drifted away, the people of London stood upon the ruins with hope in their hearts. They knew the road would be long, but they also knew that the city they loved would endure. The Great Fire of London was a tragedy, but out of its ashes rose a story of resilience that still inspires the world today. Yet it also cleared the way for a new beginning. This is not the end, it's just the beginning. The next chapter will reveal even more. Don't miss it.